Hi there guys, welcome to this video. So today the title is what it felt like to be at the gym from 2012 to 2019, where it was the times I've been gymming most, up to 2019 was really my peak level. I really wanted to make this video just to share with you my experience with the fitness industry, how it felt like to be at the gym, and how basically the fitness industry, in my opinion, evolved, how it changed, and how I grew up basically in the gyms. So why do I make a video from how it felt like to be at the gym from this time frame? Well, I think that people that are natural and been gymming for a long time and watching this channel, this video, will be able to relate to a lot of things that I will say. So this video has a goal of sharing with others, talk about what it was like, and then have nice conversations in the comments. And for those who are beginners, just getting in the fitness industry right now, starting the gym, I think this video will be very important because I will be able, through this experience of what it felt like to be at the gym and observing the fitness industry evolving, I'll be able to tell you basically where you stand right now in the fitness industry as you're starting. So what to watch out for, what to be careful about, which trend we're in at the moment. So one good example before starting this video would just be to say that I believe we're in the trend, in the time frame of the fitness industry where there's never been as much steroid use as right now, and as much influence to use these products, just because of how it is. And I'm going to talk about it, social media, word of mouth, the will to be the biggest possible and to get things pretty easy, fast results. And so this steroid trend is one good example of where you stand right now and what to be careful about. So this is, for beginners, I think a pretty important video, so they know how it was in the past years, the last decade basically, because I've been gymming for 10 years almost. And so I'll give them an idea of how to start the best way possible in the period that they're finding themselves right now in the fitness industry, and simply how to adapt according to that. It's also going to be many things that I might just come across, just like the gyms I've been in, small gyms for example, bigger gyms, what's my experience with that. It's also going to be like a little gym experience story, so I might also get to other subjects that I hope will be interesting and helpful for you. Of course, you'll also get just training tips, advice along the story. So I encourage you to really stay in that video. Hope you enjoy it. So I started gymming in 2012. I was a skinny guy. I was around 45 kg, which is around 100 pounds. I started in a very small gym, and at the time, it was really discovering. I was quite naive as I started. The only thing that really was important, it was that I was training hard. I was training basically hard for my level. As a beginner, you can't do that much. You can't train like 7 days a week like you would do when you're more advanced. When you're starting, 3-4 times a week of an hour is good. I was training like 4 hours a week, trying to just have a program where I was basically splitting things the best way possible. So when I started my program with probably something like chest, shoulders, biceps, and this twice a week maybe, and then do another day where I do back, triceps. I would try to split things basically the best way possible. I didn't really start legs when I started the gym. I started years later actually. I was just focused on the upper body. I think a lot of us actually fell for that, and actually it cost me to have to catch up later on. So if I was you, if it's only one session by the way of legs a week from the start, I would advise you to do that because it's not much hard work, and later on you don't have to catch up really with this. Coming back to the subject, I started in a small gym. So a small gym, in my opinion, is great when you start. Obviously there wasn't much equipment, the dumbbells weren't going very heavy. I think it was 24 kg maximum. But you get into this vibe of everyone is nice in small gyms. Generally everyone knows each other, and to me that was a great start. I didn't know what was a big gym. I just started there because there was a gym pretty close by, and great experience in small gyms. You're gonna find if you're scared of starting the gym, you're basically gonna have a nice atmosphere. So starting in a small gym is not bad. Socially it's something pretty good. Now in small gyms where obviously the level of people is not very high, you're gonna come across a lot of bullshit. People are gonna advise you things that don't make sense, stereotypes that we find online or everywhere, this is the kind of places where you're gonna find, people giving you bad advice. So if you're starting in a small gym, be nice, have friends, make friends, etc. But be careful with the advice that is given there. And also, people that usually are in small gyms are just people coming there to have a bit of fun. There is not much equipment, so people are beginners really, but they're not really pushing hard. So also you will find a lot of naturals, which is good in a sense, because you don't hang out in big gyms where you have all these people taking steroids and they're making you intimidated. It's just not a very nice vibe. It's not something that I really like. So at least you'll be across people who are natural, but they're not the best naturals, because they're the ones that will often talk about the natural limit, because obviously they're not pushing very far. So they're also not going to be the ones that will encourage you the most to believe in what you can do, staying all natural. So that's about small gyms. I just wanted to give some information about this, because this is how I started. But I don't regret it at all. I think for the start, you have plenty of room to improve. And when you don't have much equipment, also something I want to say is that at least if you have bars and you have weights, plates to add on bars, usually as gym is always sticking to the basics, that's really enough. You can get to a great level. I think the issue in this gym was the dumbbells, which don't go very heavy. But as soon as you find bars and plates, then you have basic exercises that you can do and go quite heavy on them. So you can still improve. That's the most important. In 2012, there wasn't much social media yet, so it's not like you could really have a look at what the fitness industry looks like, PDs and stuff. I didn't really know about it. I didn't know what it did to the body. I didn't know how it could help people to get fast results. Literally someone that I would probably see using PDs and be big, I'd just be like, well done for your hard work, etc. Which sometimes is the case, but as we know it today, is not always the case. PDs help tremendously, and it's not always a result of hard work. So this was the naive start. But one thing that was very important was obviously that I was already working out hard towards my goals. As I mentioned, 2013 was the next year where I started to go to America, and here I was in a bigger gym. That was not a huge gym, but obviously the equipment was much better. And this is when I started really eating a lot. So I was in an exchange family, and they would feed me obviously a lot, just like the American way does. And obviously my strength increased. My level was still definitely beginner, but the improvement was big. It's just that I started so low in the weights that I went up to something like 80 kg on my bench press. When I was in America, I went from like 60 kg to 80 kg, which is quite big in a period of 5 months. But still, I'm still standing in a beginner basically phase. But yeah, in America, I started seeing more people in the gyms. It wasn't that small gym, and I was, for example, seeing people using PDs, but I didn't know at the time. Now I look back at it, I know they were using, but at the time I didn't know. And I just thought, the physics were obviously impressive, and I was hoping to reach this level naturally, which some of them were obviously achievable naturally, because some people using PDs get to a decent level, but because they don't really know how to train or don't put that much hard work, then naturally you can actually catch up with them. But there were other people obviously who had a big time level using the stuff, and you can probably not reach them. But at the time, I didn't really know what was achievable naturally, and what was due to using steroids. One thing that I can remember from my 2013 year was really pulling the trigger on eating more food. Even though that was probably too much, I was always someone quite lean, and here I started to be a bit chubby basically. But I'd rather go a bit chubby and improve in the gym, understand the process behind progressing at the gym, than not eating at all and never progressing. So I was probably on like 700 more calories of surplus a day, because I went from being in my home country and just eating normally to actually really going to America, and they would feed me obviously with pretty junk food, but at least it made me improve. I came back to France, and people were like, "How? Like you've improved so much? Like you've really put on weight. It's impressive." And obviously it wasn't just fat. There was a lot of muscle that I've added as well. but there was more fat. Obviously, you know, my face probably changed, got a bit chubbier. But if there is one thing from the 2013 year of my own gym experience that I want you to remember, it's that, you know, pull the trigger on eating. If you're a beginner, not too much. Don't do, you know, 700 plus calories of surplus, but start, you know, doing 200, 300. It will put you in, you know, this phase where you drive good momentum. You know, start going heavy with the weights, etc., and you'll start improving. And it's better to actually escape the stagnation phase of not eating at all and not improving, and, you know, be ready to bulk a little bit, put a bit on weight, and actually start improving. As for 2013, there wasn't much social media yet. It was the start of Instagram and things like that. And, you know, as I said, I was still naive and seeing, you know, these huge people and not know what to think about it really. As for how much I was gymming every week, this was around probably 6 or 8 hours, which is also what explains why, you know, I was progressing pretty fast, because 6-8 hours a week when you're like a novice is quite a lot. That was the maximum that I could do without taking too much risk for myself or overtraining, and so that's a good range after a year of training to train, you know, 6-8 hours a week. So in 2014, this is something that in my gym experience was one of the most important that I really want to transmit to you in this video. And I always often say it in the videos, it's about specializing. I came back from America, I went to boarding school, so I was sleeping, you know, at the school 5 days a week and the weekend coming back home. And I would bring my dumbbells from home to the boarding school, and I had like worth 40 kg or 50 kg of dumbbells in my bags, and, you know, students there probably looked at me like, why is this guy carrying such a heavy bag? Like literally this bag at the end of the year just crashed and you know, was destroyed because of me every week bringing the weights to the boarding school and bringing them back to my house, because I was that, you know, motivated. And so I had basically 2 dumbbells that I could put up to something like 24 kg each, because that was 50 kg in total. And I didn't have much exercises that I could do. I could only train, you know, my shoulders and my biceps basically when I was at the boarding school. And I didn't have much exercise to do besides curls for biceps and lateral raises for shoulders, because, you know, I wouldn't do shoulder presses because with 24 kg each, it's not much. I guess I could go heavier than this already. And lateral raises though, with 24 kg in each hand, that's very heavy, and for a beginner or novice of someone who's been training for 2 years, that was really heavy. So I could actually do lateral raises and improve because I had enough weight for this exercise. And so this is why when I talk about home workouts and stuff like this, you know, when you don't have much weight, you always have to focus on exercises which don't involve much weight and when you can improve. And so here I decided to do this. And because I didn't have any other exercises to do, I just simply did 25 sets of curls. That would do like a whole session of biceps. You know, when you split it with different exercises, you do 20-25 sets maybe in a session. Well, here I would do like a normal session, 20-25 sets, but just the same exercise. And I would do same for lateral raises. And I actually improved so much doing this because I would only focus on one exercise. And this is specializing basically. This is specializing on what matters. And because you keep just hammering one exercise, you actually improve faster on this exercise and put on muscle faster because you put on strength quicker on this exercise. This is just like a virtuous, you know, cycle really. It's great to specialize, and that's why later on in your bodybuilding journey, you want to learn about your body morphology. You want to learn about, you know, which exercises are better for you, exercise selection. And once you have this exercise selection, you want to hammer the exercises that you choose for yourself. Specializing. This is probably the most important thing I've learned, because in 2014 I really improved. I was gymming 8 to 10 hours a week, which is a little bit more than in 2013, and I simply hammered these sessions where I would just specialize a lot and, you know, do a lot of lateral raises for my shoulders, etc. And so at boarding school I would do that, and then I would come back the weekend at my house, and, you know, the Friday night after the whole week and the day, I would gym, you know, have a back session at my house, and then the Saturday morning at my small gym that I used to go to, I would go the Saturday morning because it was only open then at this time, and I would do another session, and then on Sunday I would do another session. So that was 5 times a week, 8 to 10 hours a week after 2 years of training, you know, something great. I was doing as much as I could again at the time, and specializing, really starting to focus on less exercises and put more attention to them rather than have so many exercises and not being focused in the session was something that really spiked my results. I would say then 2015, it's the time I went to England. And so here, that was a new world for me, and in bodybuilding as well, because I was entering a bigger gym. It wasn't a huge gym, but it was, a gym like in the UK, quite big, and plenty of new people to meet, obviously, not, from my home country. It was a total new world for me. And there was Instagram more present at this time, social media, etc. And I started to really meet a lot of people, people that, if we're talking about bodybuilding, that were natural and others that weren't natural, and obviously, starting to notice some weird things about the bodies that we see, some people with huge traps, big rounded shoulders, and something basically wrong with the skin, or just a feeling that something was off, obviously. And so that was the time, I started, looking on the forums, and I was wondering why I would hear Kai Green or other pro bodybuilders say things that were different to what I've experienced naturally and was working for me naturally. Also, I've always listened to the same people, natural bodybuilders. I've always been following most of the time the same website since I started, and I really trusted these people because they were natural, and I believed them to be natural because the way they were talking was obvious that they were natural. And so, the advice from the guys at the top that were huge were always different. It was always talking about the feelings, how the session felt, how you should feel the muscle, and all the things that didn't really make sense to me. They weren't really talking about progression as such, progressive overload. It was always about the feeling and quite an abstract way of training. It was never really logic, etc. And so I really started to wonder, and interacting with the people at the gym, I would look at people obviously who looked weird to me at the time, so basically on PDs, showing off something different, and their way of training, it was just different, and I just obviously starting to really look at that, and that was the beginning of the trend to me of the steroid era as we know it on social media and all the bad marketing tactics, etc. I would basically start, looking at Instagram and be like, is this guy natural? Is he not? That was really the start for me, and I was still naive in my approach because I'm not sure if I was naive or not, because I would see people that today we know are fake natties, but I believed it was possible to achieve naturally, and I still believe that their physiques was achievable naturally, or at least for naturals when they're about to compete, but maybe not all year round, like people that are so shredded like Jeff Said, etc. But I believe the physique like Jeff Said was achievable naturally for at least elite natural bodybuilders and the ones that are ready to go on stage. You could have a physique that looked like him now all year round and training not like a freak. You wouldn't be able to reach this level all the time. Because one thing as well that about Jeff Said, etc., is that when I looked at his trainings and his lifestyle, I was like, it's not possible to stay shredded like that all year round and to have a big physique, not training this particularly hard. Because when I was watching his sessions, I didn't find it to be crazy sessions, etc., like naturals would do. So yes, you can reach a physique like Jeff Said, I believe, naturally after training for a decade, but you have to be very serious. It's hard, but. So I wasn't really naive because I did believe naturally you could achieve that, but I didn't know yet who was natural or not. I just couldn't tell. And because I'm quite optimistic in the bodybuilding world, I just wanted to believe it was possible, but I could feel basically that it was the trend starting and that something sucked in the industry and that I really didn't belong to this. But if there is one thing training wise to remember from this 2015 year for me, was that it's not because I arrived in a much bigger gym that I really changed my training. I kept doing the same exercises. I barely modified anything because, as I often mention, specializing, keeping the same exercise selection is usually great because you have a way to measure. If you keep changing your program all the time, you're not going to be able to measure your progress. And it's by sticking to the things you do, to the things that you've chosen to be the best for you, that you improve. You have to stick to these things. Once you've chosen, you stick to it. You can't keep changing. And so I was in a bigger gym with more stuff to do, basically more machines, but I didn't really care about the machines. I kept doing the basic stuff and improving on it basically. And that's it. And I kept making great progress. I was probably gymming, 10 hours a week, which is probably, 5 times a week, 2-hour sessions, which is, quite a lot after 3 years of training, and, was the most I could do at the time. I was training hard, and yeah, wasn't overtraining, wasn't undertraining, just doing the best I could really. In 2016 was the year I bulked up the most. I went to 110 kg. And when I look at the pictures today, and it's just been 4 or 5 years that I was gymming, I actually believe that, I reached a great level naturally. I looked big for someone who's been gymming for 5 years. And, this was probably to these tips that I've just given you about exercise selection. Just gymming as much as I could for my current level, being quite obsessed with it, and eating a lot of food as well, because obviously it wasn't just plain lean. I was a bit chubby, but I looked massive, and there wasn't much more advice that I could give you in 2016 that I wasn't doing before. I just really kept doing exercise selection, training harder than before because I could at this point. So I was gymming maybe 12, 10 to 15 hours a week. The progressive overload is for the weights, but it's also, as soon as you can do more in the gym in terms of quantity, then you should do it. You have to look at the quality, but as soon as you can, if the quantity can improve as well, why not? You have to do more at some point, do more time in the gym because you have to do more volume to actually keep improving. You have to train harder, and that's just the way it is. It's not just quality, it's also quantity. Quantity matters. There is always this debate between quantity and quality. Well, both are important really. Focus on the quality first and then try to do more quantity on this quality basically base that you have. In 2016, looking at the industry, I can just only tell you that things are getting worse steroid-wise. I start to understand, that people who use steroids, some of them don't seem really to work hard and they get great results. Others, they kind of, use steroids and they don't have a great physique. So I don't really understand why some people have great physiques, using steroids, others not. And it's something I'm gonna come back to later. But basically, still, for the mass majority, people using steroids, they were getting great results, not doing much, and there was a lot of pictures on social media about advice that I don't agree to, and that people who seem to use steroids do, and I just don't really like Instagram at this point. I remember posting some posts, on my small Instagram and just being like, fake natties, blah blah blah. Like I don't like this trend. Like I was just basically already starting to talk about this trend and not liking all the bullshit that couldn't be seen yet, and that only starts to be seen now, but that couldn't be seen yet by other people, by naturals, and just a lot of lies in the fitness industry. And going on to 2017, well, regarding the fitness industry, it just gets worse. From 2015, as I started to mention and to notice these things don't get worse from there. With the steroid era, it's just more and more bad marketing, more people using PDs, and so in 2017 it's exactly what's happening. And I'm starting to look at people and being like, one day they will pay the price for using these products because they can't just use this and not have problems in the future. So I keep doing my thing. If we're talking training wise, I train probably 15 hours a week at this point. This is my first cut as well, real cut. And I lose 20 kg of fat basically, and after this 20 kg I'm probably standing at like 10% body fat, and there's another 5 kg to lose if I wanted to go down to 8 and a bit more, like if I wanted to compete, which I didn't because I've always refused to compete in this industry where obviously you go to natural bodybuilding competitions and you're gonna come across people who are using stuff or you've been using stuff. Basically competing is just not something interesting for me at this point. So I just want to cut for myself to actually look lean, to look good, etc. When you're doing a cut, what I've learned is obviously to keep the same program as you have. You just want to keep your strengths as high as possible, and this is how you measure how well you're doing your cut. After you've lost all this weight, basically you just want to keep as much strength as you can and get as close as you were basically when you're in the bulk, and this will indicate you that you did a good cut or not. If the weights are going down like crazy, then you're probably not doing a very good job. But if you only lose a few kg basically on most of your lifts, etc., then you're doing pretty well. But then again, it depends how much you have to lose. I had to lose 20 kg, so actually my bench went from like 160 to like 130, you see. But that was the best I could do, and I tried to keep as much strength as possible, doing strength work, just doing the same things, focusing on the same exercises, and this was the best way to cut down. A lot of people will come up with stereotypes and bullshit advice about how you have to train with lower weights and doing higher reps type of training when you're cutting, which is definitely not true, because with the cut, eating less, etc., you're already gonna lose weight because you're not eating as much, so you don't want to bring the weight down by yourself voluntarily. If you do that, you're just gonna destroy your cut, and you're just gonna destroy more muscle than you're supposed to. So in 2018-2019, we're coming to the end of this little gym story. The fitness industry, in my opinion, is obviously at its worst, just like it is most likely right now. I just see, I'm gymming a lot. I'm gymming, 20 to 25 hours a week, 3-4 hours a day, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy bodybuilding. I've always loved it, but the environment, I don't like it at all, because I'm just surrounded by, at this point, because I've reached a very good level naturally, it's hard to relate first to other people, because people think you're on steroids first, because you're getting really big naturally. And while some people like being called on steroids when they're natural, I really at this point started not to like it anymore. It's not seen as a compliment anymore. I was just thinking, this industry is fucked up. Like, people can't believe I'm natural just because I've got big and I've got good lifts, and that was frustrating. Basically, there is all this part of the industry that obviously doesn't believe it and thinks you have to be on PDs. And we were just surrounded by all the marketing bad tactics still, all these fake natties on the internet, and going to the gym, doing something you like 3-4 hours a day, but in an environment that sucks, is hard. So there was some pleasure into doing this, because I love training hard and getting bigger and keep getting bigger naturally, and have this lifestyle of just gymming. But at the same time, the environment was frustrating. I became really frustrated about the industry at this point, and this is also why I wanted to start this channel at some point. I just became frustrated with the environment, doing something that I love in an environment where it goes basically against everything that is true in the bodybuilding world. And training this much feels lonely. It feels lonely because you think a certain way, and you know quite a lot about training, and you just feel like when you're giving advice, people are not sure to believe you, because they think you're taking steroids and etc. Like, it feels lonely to be in this industry and training this hard, basically. So I want to basically conclude this video with giving you advice on how to adapt and where you stand right now in the fitness industry, and to basically give a sum up of what I've just explained to you, this story of mine, basically from 2012 to 2019. So it's been a good experience. Obviously, a lot of great people that I've met, and I've had a good experience in the gym. I've had great results, I believe. I've been gymming really hard, and went from very skinny to big to massive. And the environment is the only thing that I think is bad in the industry. The practice of bodybuilding to me was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed pushing the limits of the natural, but the environment has just been stressful. Almost from the start. Well, from the start, where I've been in bigger gyms, where I've discovered this new side of the bodybuilding world, which was most of it PD usage and lies and marketing and bad marketing, etc. In terms of time frame, 2012 was already not a bad year, basically, to start the gym, because one thing that people didn't have back then was, maybe there is too much information today, and that can be annoying and overwhelming, but there is too much information, but in that too much, basically, information, you have the good information, you just have to find it, basically. Back then, when there wasn't any information at all, you couldn't even find the right information, because there wasn't anything really to rely on, and people you could rely on were just the pro bodybuilders featured in the old school magazines, and they weren't giving great advice. So at least today, you know, in my time in 2012, something I really can't complain about is that there was information for me to start, and there was good information, and I just found it basically. And I think that today is no different in 2020, 21, 22 soon. You can actually find you know, the right information. There is a lot of bullshit out there, but you just have to focus on the right things. My advice is obviously to you, if you're starting the gym today in this environment that I mentioned, is the steroid era. And when I say steroid era, is everyone is using, you know, steroids, the young people, etc. Your friends might be using it. Basically, an industry, you know, quite surrounded by drug users, is to stick to natural bodybuilding advice. From the start, natural bodybuilders who reach a great level usually have the best advice for you. So, you know, stick to this channel and stick to other natural bodybuilding channels and give great advice. If you're starting the gym, that's really the you know, the advice that I can give you. In all this mass of information, stick to the natural bodybuilding world and to its advice. So you're not starting in a bad period, in my opinion, because, you know, there are natural bodybuilding channels out there. There is good information again for you. And you know, I think the worst was probably behind us, hopefully, in terms of steroid use, because now people are, you know, paying for basically using the products. I think in the industry we see a lot of death in the natural bodybuilding world, etc. People are coming a bit more aware of this, and so you weren't basically starting in the frustrating period where I kind of was. I always just felt frustrated, you know, all these years seeing this bullshit around me and being a natural bodybuilder. So at least you probably don't have to go through that, and you can find the right information easier than back in the days where it was all a mess. And if you can do one thing, is just obviously when you're meeting new people, etc., is if you trust in the natural bodybuilding world and you're a natural, you know, keep basically promoting natural bodybuilding. Just don't let yourself tempted by using PDs or stuff like that. And when people ask about it in your gym, just give your opinion, promote natural bodybuilding. That's the only thing you can really do today. And that's it. I think this is how you can adapt. You know now which era you're entering. I think you're entering an era where there is plenty of use of steroids, and it's gonna keep being like this for probably a few years. But you know, it's also an era where natural bodybuilding is interesting again, and there are channels that can help you for that. So you should, you know, you're in a pretty good position, in my opinion, and this is where you stand right now in the fitness industry, in this era, basically. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. The, you know, few training tips that I could give, my opinion in big gyms, and, you know, my experience with, you know, observing people using steroids, whatnot, and that, you know, you have learned a bit from that, and that now you can relate and know where you stand in the fitness industry and how to go from there. Thank you for watching the video, guys. I will see you very soon next time in another video. If you liked it, you know, well, feel free to hit the like button. Feel free to share and to comment. Most important is just to comment. If you've got, you know, a question or something you just want to say, go for it, and, you know, I will interact with you. Yeah, that's it. See you later, guys.